within reach of my reading goal for this year. I think probably a couple weeks ago, I sort of gave up hope. My original reading goal for this year was 26 books. I'm realizing now that I far underestimated the amount that I would read this year because more recently I raised my reading goal up to 52. Once I realized that I would definitely be in the 40s range, I thought, why not set that as a goal and sort of see if I can reach that. It seems so far-flung, and it seems like the type of thing that I would have to decide at the beginning of the year and then work my ass off for. And I'm within reach of it. I honestly was not expecting this to happen. Right now I'm sitting at 49 books so far this year. The most recent two being Mort by Terry Pratchett and What I Talk About When I Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami. I listened to the audiobook of that through Libby. So now I just need to read 3 more books. And that feels so doable because right now I'm reading, I'm listening to Word Slut by Amanda Montell, also through Libby. And I am reading Writers on Writing, which is an essay collection from the New York Times that is exactly what it sounds like. It's all about writers' perspectives on their own craft. It's really interesting. It's giving me a lot of insights that I sort of wish I had going into NaNoWriMo. They all have very different approaches to their craft and different views on it, and sort of getting their perspectives is really inspiring me and showing me a lot of different ways to think about this art that, I've only thought of in my way. Obviously I've chatted with other people about how they write and things like that, but it's cool to get so many different perspectives in a relatively short book. It's I think 260 pages, and it's got like probably 20 or 30 essays in it. So pretty short essays, but very sort of dense with good information. All that to say, that's 2 books that I'm currently working on and can reasonably finish within the next month. And I'm also starting The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie, which is the final book in the first Law trilogy. The Last Argument of Kings is, I think, around 560 pages, something like that, between 500 and 600. So it is going to take me longer than the others. But one thing that I like to do for that is reading in tandem. So essentially what that involves is reading the physical book whenever the opportunity presents itself, just as I would with a normal book. And then whenever I would normally be listening to an audiobook, I will listen to the audiobook of this same book, starting where I left off in the physical book. So it's a little bit tricky to get the synchronization right. It pretty much means that I have to end on it pretty much means that I have to end on a chapter mark most times that I read, which can be tricky depending on how long the chapters are. But in general, this helps me read longer books a lot faster. And the audiobook narrators for the first Law trilogy are absolutely incredible. Their performance of the text just adds so much to it, in my opinion. I did the same exact thing with the second book in the trilogy, Before They Are Hanged, and I'm so glad I did that. It added so much to the experience, and I still got the sensation of, holding the book and reading physically sometimes, and then also listening to the audiobook. And yeah, this method of doing it will help me sort of finish it at a quicker timescale than I usually read books of this length. So assuming that I finish all 3 of these books before December 31st, that's the reading goal right there. That is the 52 books done, which is just wild to me. This isn't something that I planned out from the beginning of the year. It's not even something that I thought was going to be achievable 2 weeks ago. A couple weeks ago, I finished The Last Olympian in the Percy Jackson series, which brought me up to, I think, 47 books. At that point, that's still 5 books to go with a busy finals week ahead of me. But after finishing what I talk about when I talk about running and Mort, I only have 3 books to go. All of this said, I think I'm going to change my approach to reading goals for 2023. I don't think that a numerical reading goal is what I want to be focusing on. I think that the number goal for the past few years has encouraged me to make reading a habit, and that's super useful. That has gotten me to read so much more than I ever have before, and for that reason, it's really good. It's super useful in that way, but I don't think it reflects my long-term aspirations when it comes to reading. I think when I think about the type of reader I want to be and the type of content that I want to be able to make about books, I think more about how deeply I understand books, and I want to get really good at digging super deeply into certain books. I think that will mean that I'll read fewer of them next year, but if I read 25 books twice as deeply, assuming that, it takes on average twice as long to do so, I'm happy with that. I think that would be a great use of my time, and I'd still be able to read a lot of books and get a lot out of them. This isn't to say that people shouldn't have numerical reading goals. I think that I think that they have their uses, and they've certainly served me well for the past 2 years. But I don't know, I'm curious about what other styles of reading goals are out there. I think talking about depth of understanding is really hard to measure, and so I don't think that on its own will make for a good reading goal. I think that I might be able to... I'm curious if I'm honest with myself after I read a book, if I will be able to identify whether I understand it to a satisfactory extent. And if the answer is no, what's the course of action from there? Do I just reread it on the spot? I feel like that wouldn't be super useful for me or particularly fun. I feel like I need to get my definition straight as to what I mean by understanding a book on a deeper level before I try to make a goal about it. I think what will be more effective is trying to come up with goals that are about types of books and about, broadening my horizons, so to speak. There are authors that I really want to get to. There are authors that I want to read more of, such as Becky Chambers. I want to read all of her work. Same thing with Ursula K. Le Guin. I have focused on her books this year. That was a goal of mine, to read a lot of Ursula K. Le Guin, and I've done that, and it's paid off super well. In the fact that I've been able to read, I think 3 of her books, sorta. I think. Wait. Yeah, no, 3 of her books I was able to get through this year. And I want to keep doing that. I want to keep exploring Ursula K. Le Guin. I think she has so much to offer, and I haven't even finished one of her series yet, The Hainish Cycle. So I think I'll make a video at the end of this year with sort of my qualitative reading goals for 2023. Gosh, I really learned a lot by reading so much this year. Not just, the content of the books. I did read books that I learned a lot from. But what I mean is that I learned a lot about the type of reader I am and the type of reader I want to be. And I'm hoping that I can just really dive into other aspects of that. Quantity is great, and I learned so much, and I want to try just a different approach. I guess I'm rambling now, and I think that's because I'm not clear on what I mean by hardly any of this. When I think about certain series that I want to read next year, things get really stressful really fast. I think sitting on my TBR shelf right now is all of the Wheel of Time. Actually, not all of it, just the ones that I own, but it's most of the Wheel of Time right there. I think my goal for next year is to read the first 4 of those. And then there are also a couple trilogies that I really want to read, such as the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin and Remembrance of Earth's Past by Cixin Liu. Those are both trilogies that I really want to get to, as well as The Earthsea Cycle by Ursula K. Le Guin, which is 4 books. Granted, they're pretty short, but still a 4-book series. I mean, that could be half or more of my reading year next year, is just series, which, don't get me wrong, I love these types of series that, whether they're trilogies or longer than that, really dig into a story and make it super deep and complex. If you followed me for a while, you know that I love when series get sort of when they immerse you and really drag you into the world that they're a part of. But if I do have this goal of reading fewer books more deeply, man, that's going to be a large percentage of of my reading next year. So I want to reevaluate and really be intentional about which series I'm choosing to read, so that I can just get as much as I can out of them in terms of reading experience and understanding, and just sort of bang for my buck in terms of what I'm picking up, I guess. The reason this is stressful is because there are so many. I have a note in my notes app that says, it lists all of the series that I'm currently reading and also all of the series that I want to read. And that list is maybe the most daunting thing about reading right now for me. It seems inconceivable that I will ever get to all of them. And I'm sure that list will grow next year as well. So I'm not sure if these are things that are even attainable. But sort of choosing a place to start is super important. I know that none of it will get done if I don't get any of it done. Kind of a convoluted way of saying that, but you need to take the first step. I need to take the first step. And yeah, just choosing those series, which ones I'm really going to invest myself in, will be part of that. So I'll make a video towards the end of the year about more specifically what my goals are going to be going into 2023. And gosh, yeah, I've never had a reading goal that wasn't numerical. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a learning experience. And if you have tips about it, leave them in the comments so that I can, get a feel for other experiences that people have had with creating goals. Wish me luck.